Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all you Audie fans, he's been in the front window for about an hour, and it's been sort of dark, gloomy, it's kind of cold, but the sun recently peeked out for a few minutes, so his patience paid off. Right now, he's at my feet. So I'd say odds are good he's going to be in my lap in a second or two, and maybe we'll get a chance to see him. What do you think? All right, you do your thing. Yellow for Catherine, for Lex's mom, for everyone who's coping with cancer. We are sending you out our very best wishes. Oh, so Invictus is on. Well, we've got some, I don't know, I don't even want to say interesting things going on. A lot of it is old news, predictable, nothing other than what we've seen in every Invictus in the past. But we are going to take a look at that and a few other interesting topics when we come back in 22 seconds. So let's start with what I guess would have to be the big story, because Donald Trump has said he doesn't plan to deport the sock puppet because the sock puppet has got his hands full with his wife. She's terrible. Wow. So I have to say, it's unusual for a U.S. president to get quite so involved in, for lack of a better term, pop culture. Because frankly, that's all Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet are, pop culture. But yeah, Trump has essentially said that whatever ill anyone might wish on the sock puppet could be nothing compared to the hell he is currently living in with his wife. So yeah, I found this wonderful picture of him from the Invictus games, and I have to tell you, when I saw that, the caption that immediately came to my mind was, "Please deport me now." So yeah, I don't think he's thrilled, and I don't think he's really pleased to have the little woman hanging all over him like a cheap suit. Although, frankly, that's just her normal behavior, not just with the sock puppet, but with any man, period. Like from 8 to 80, this is her default mode. Poor sock puppet. Yeah, I am kind of starting to feel a little bit sorry for him. So that leads us to the examination of his visa status. And although the courts refuse to disclose the documents, they are willing to look at the case again. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. Obviously it means they're willing to look at it, but have they brought up new evidence? Have they taken a new spin on this? Do they feel that with the new political administration, they have a better chance? I don't know. But obviously the court has decided to give them another chance, which absolutely says, hey, we're keeping an open mind, which I interpret that as a good sign, because quite frankly, there is so much obvious, just prima facie evidence that the sock puppet has either lied on his visa application about his drug use, or that for some reason he, as opposed to so many other people, was given a pass on this to be able to come into the country, and that too would deserve an explanation. So I'd like to see this go forward, if for no other reason than I think the United States government has an obligation not only to our own citizens, but to the citizens of the world to show that our immigration process is fair, that everyone has the same chance to come into the country, regardless of their status, their family connection, or their mythical titles, because this is America. Being related to a king shouldn't really tip the scales in your favor. So yeah, I'd like to see this one play out, regardless of what the eventual outcome is. But yeah, so, and that's almost the last of the sock puppet news. I know. We're thinking, oh my goodness, it's the Invictus week. It should be nothing but sock puppet. No, not exactly. So apparently there was a film clip, which I have not been able to track down yet, mostly because it's just been released, of the sock puppet dancing his way into Invictus. I don't even know what to say about that. It's just plain bizarre to me. It's like something out of a comedy movie that he's going to dance his way in there. And no, this film is not the sock puppet dancing. It's some other entitled rich guy dancing in a movie. So I'm going to continue to look for the film clip, although I have to be honest, I really don't want to see it because I'm sure it is just horrific. The sock puppet cannot dance, and I cannot imagine why he would think it's appropriate to dance his way in. But more on that a little later. Now, let's take a look at Nutmeg, who, as usual, so like I said, this is not new news. This is just Nutmeg being Nutmeg. There was a stage, there was a microphone, there were cameras, there was an audience, so you gotta know where she was going to be. So she gets up and she gives a speech at the opening of the Invictus Games, swearing that she wasn't expecting to speak. Oh no, because this is not a woman who just grabs like a zombie for every microphone and every center mark on every stage she has ever been on. She wasn't expecting this. And this obviously off-the-cuff speech that she made. Oh my. So she was on the stage for about, 3 to 4 minutes. It was grueling. And of course, I had to listen to it with earbuds in because, my cat can't stand the sound of her voice. And if I'm not super careful to make sure he doesn't have to hear it, he will scream at me and bite me. So, yeah, around here, nutmeg is just not a welcome sound. So she starts off to a very, very tepid applause from the audience. I was surprised, frankly. Well, it's a Canadian audience. I guess they don't boo you in Canada. They just don't clap quite as robustly as they might otherwise. But again, Canada. So it was a lukewarm applause when she first began speaking, and she has been criticized. I'm glad, by the way, that this video is one day into the Invictus, simply because that's our video schedule, so that I've had a chance to take a look at what the media has said about Nutmeg's little introduction, which is allegedly what it was. And in fact, everybody basically said the same thing. It was as if she was giving a speech at the Oscars. So this was her Oscar moment. And yeah, hey, good for her. Enjoy it. It's about as close as she's ever going to get. So she eventually sort of fired up the crowd. And the way one fires up a crowd, and this is standard, anybody who's ever spoken to a crowd knows this. You flatter their city, their country, whatever their location is. So glad to be in Albuquerque. So pleased to be back in Phoenix. I was here on a road trip once when I was a teenager, whatever. And that always gets you a nice round of applause. And of course, with Nutmeg, because she had once lived in Canada, she had to say, oh, it's like I'm coming home. Well, Canada was never actually her home. She was in Canada when she filmed Suits. And if Tom Bauer can be believed, and frankly, I think he can, she would have been deliriously happy if the show had transferred filming to New York. So, yeah. And frankly, she couldn't wait to get out of Toronto. And then later, when she and the sock puppet were allegedly going to come back to North America, that's my complaining cat, by the way, come back to North America to live in a Commonwealth country, they go to Canada. What did they spend? Was it even 2 months in Vancouver? I don't think so. And she could not wait to get out of Vancouver, fleeing as Vancouver was in lockdown. I'm still not even sure how they pulled that off. But yeah, so Canada is her home? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I'm happy for our Canadian friends that it is not her home. But, you know, as an American, I wouldn't mind seeing the back of her. I wouldn't wish her on our Canadian friends, but I sure would wish her somewhere else. So, yeah. And then she starts lecturing the athletes, basically about how privileged they are, that the sock puppet has done so much for them to bring them to the Invictus Games. So let's forget about service to their countries. Let's forget about the horror of being so badly wounded that years later you are still not recovering, may never recover. No, that didn't get you there. It was the sock puppet, which was bizarre. That was definitely a very off-key note, because the suggestion she was throwing out there was that all of them owed their presence at the Invictus Games to her beloved husband. No, they owed their presence at the Invictus Games to the sacrifices they made for their respective countries. How freaking dare she? But she'll dare anything, as we all know. So then she introduces Prince Harry, the founder of the Invictus Games, the Duke of Sussex. I'm like, well, why didn't you just say he was the Earl of Dumbarton too? And I'm sure he's Lord of this, that, or something or other else. I mean, it started to sound very much like one of those antiquated Master of Ceremonies introductions to the dance halls of Bath. You know, it's like, please. So she has to plant a kiss on him. He goes up. He takes the stage and then tells the athletes basically that they have been disenfranchised, saying that they lost their uniforms and they lost the fellowship and identity they had when they were in the service. And like, what? I very much doubt that the athletes feel this way. The fact that the sock puppet feels this way, I do not doubt. But then again, he thought his life experience was comparable to Vladimir Putin's life experience. So, I don't know. I think he is his own reference point. I think it doesn't occur to him that anybody on this planet could be thinking in a different way. But I was just creeped out by this entire introduction ceremony for so many reasons. And let's start with Nutmeg. So what is she doing there? She has nothing to do with the Commonwealth. She's not a British citizen. She's not a citizen of the Commonwealth. She is married to a British citizen. She is carrying a title given to her by a British sovereign, but that is about the end of her British connection. So, yeah, let's just knock that off the table. Veterans, she's never had any particular interest in veterans affairs. People with disabilities, no. This is not her thing. Now, even though she would like to believe the sock puppet founded the Invictus Games, which he did not, and as long as people are saying he did, I will be sitting here reminding us all that no, he didn't. That is a lie. Period. But even if it were true, what does that have to do with her? What is her place in this event? It is not her stage. It is not her platform, but she is determined to make it her stage and make it her platform, and she just looks like a tasteless interloper, which in fact is pretty much what she is. She is stealing the thunder of her husband, and if you're going to steal anybody's thunder, I should think the least excusable person would be your own husband. Anyone in any kind of relationship ought to be supporting their partner, not trying to undermine them at every turn, which of course she is. And it was just, it's mind-blowing at this point. It really is, because she has as little to do with this man as possible. And we've all seen this. We've seen their public statements that they are doing separate engagements. They're going to have separate professional identities. They're going to separate their brands until the time comes when the sock puppet's brand has more clout than Nutmeg's brand does. And then suddenly she's back in the game. And I am starting to wonder if the Invictus Games is not going to be divvied up when these two divorce. She'll probably be taking it to a California court and declaring that it's community property and that she has a right to it. It like I say, mind-blowing, utterly mind-blowing. And then we have the sock puppet. And so much of what he does with this group, the Invictus Games, the athletes, is just so off-kilter to me. I say this as a person with disabilities. If I were to watch an able-bodied person blindfold themselves and walk down the street with a borrowed white cane, I would be offended. And I watch him engaging in sports designed for disabled athletes, sliding around on his butt on the floor or wheeling himself around in a wheelchair. And damn, am I ever offended by that. It doesn't appear to me to be anything other than a completely false and appropriative identification with someone else's issue. He is not disabled, and which he proved by dancing his way into the event. What can I say? And I don't like it. Frankly, I don't like it. And I would love to have the opportunity to talk to the disabled athletes and just ask them how they feel about it. Because, as I say, my opinion on this comes from my own disability. I don't like it when I feel like people are either trivializing it or acting like anybody can live their life the way I live mine just because, it's so easy. The idea that you can get into a wheelchair, and I know I couldn't do this, and navigate my way around a room, we would be talking bruised shins at best. I'd probably topple myself over. No, it's not my life, it's not my disability, and I wouldn't do it because I would find it inherently disrespectful to every person who is in that chair and can't do what I can do, which is get up and walk away. So yeah, that, I don't even know what to say. That hits me on a visceral level, or maybe I'll borrow Nutmeg's term, that hits me on a guttural level. No, it hits me on a visceral level, it really does, because I watch him do that, and I think, why are you minimizing their life experience? For you, it's a 5-minute game on the floor. For them, it is forever. And if you think sitting on that floor for 5 minutes gives you any taste of what their life is like, you are more deluded than I ever thought. Okay, let me move out of the disability rant. And thank you for indulging it. But that's one thing I wanted to put out there, because I don't know if non-disabled people are perceiving this the same way. I'm troubled by it. I am truly, truly troubled by it. And let me tell you what I'm not troubled by. Just to give you a little perspective, Sophie and her work with blindness charities. Why not? Because we all know Lady Louise was born with visual impairments. Sophie, as the mother of a visually impaired child, and I believe Lady Louise's situation has been corrected to the point where she has something resembling normal vision these days, but as the mother of a child with a disability, yeah, I do get it, because you put yourself in the shoes of your child in a situation like that. And I do believe that Sophie's connection with the blind community is genuine. And I have known many advocates for blindness who have in fact not been blind themselves, but they have been the parents of blind children, the spouses of blind partners, because they have that unique, intimate insight into what the life of their loved one is like. So yeah, I am not saying that you must be disabled in order to understand what's going on in the life of someone with a disability. But you have to have a better connection than the sock puppet does, because quite frankly, it just looks like he's playing a game. And in fact, he probably is. So, okay, this is the second time I said I'm moving away, and I really am moving away from this. So I think as we move on and take a look at what's going on in the Invictus games, what we are seeing once again is a game that is supposed to be celebrating the disabled athletes, the wounded warriors. And instead, we do not see pictures of the athletes. We do not hear who is competing in which event. We don't hear the stories of the individual athletes. And that would be interesting to me. That is something that I would like to read about. That is something I would like to flip on YouTube and find a video about. No, it's all about Nutmeg and the sock puppet, because they have, well, Nutmeg hijacked the games from the sock puppet, but they both have hijacked the games from the athletes. And this is a complaint that is raised every single Invictus game for the last, 3-4 years, because in fact, this is what's going on. And it wasn't the case when the sock puppet was patronizing Invictus by himself with his brother, etc. No, this is all Nutmeg. This began when she decided to take center stage and it probably will not end until she eventually, well, loses custody in the divorce case. That's what I'm hoping for. But I'm disturbed. I think a lot of people are, and that is the initial batch of feedback to come out of this. We're hearing the same complaints again and again, year after year, and the Invictus Games Committee really needs to start taking this seriously, because, in fact, the athletes are coming in second to Nutmeg and the sock puppet. And it will continue as long as they have a stage available to them. The athletes are going to be shunted into the background. So, final thought, well, turns out that despite all of the hints and teasers that Nutmeg and the sock puppet would be bringing their putative children, no, children did not materialize. So I guess many of us sort of saw that coming, because it's very unlikely they are ever going to haul these children out in some sort of forum where they could be seen, greeted, photographed, chatted with by ordinary people. And again, I think that suggests that Mummy and Daddy have a lot to hide. But it's just par for the course. Nothing new is happening. It's just another headline grab for them. All right, so that is what I have for you today. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. By the time we get back together next Thursday, there may well be more news. Let's hope it's not just same old, same old, same old. And in the meantime, have a terrific day.